So there's something underlying all of this. Underlying isn't quite the right word because it's not a layer, it's not a basis, it's not a background. But it's just one way of pointing to what I want to say here. I'll use the term emptiness. Emptiness takes care of everything. It is already everything. But it's also absolutely nothing at all. It's the no-thingness of all apparent objects in front of your face. It's the locationlessness of the sounds you hear right now. It's the movement of the breath, and it's the absolute radiantly empty nature of the movement of breath. The radiance of this emptiness is so profound. It destroys everything. It destroys every remnant of separation. It destroys every illusion again and again and again. It's like a fire that burns everything. Now, when you first come in contact with this, or you hear this, you may have a fear response. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. Because there are identity structures that are in the way of knowing, seeing, feeling, living this empty nature all the time, which is almost a magic trick. It's almost impossible that we don't. And yet, these identity structures somehow filter it from experience. But that's not even really true. What they do is they filter in something that doesn't exist called a self apart, a mitigating self, a managing self, something that can be separate, that can exist on its own, that can push or pull against experience, that can imagine itself into various scenarios and situations that don't exist. All of that is just an illusion. It's not ever come into being. It's not ever becoming anything. Never was. Very strange. So then what is left when all of that illusory material subsides or stops? All of that efforting, that selfing, when it stops, what's left? That's the best question of all. Because it doesn't need an answer. This radiant, empty nature is the answer. And it's the loudest thing in the room. It's the loudest thing in the world. It's the loudest thing in the entire universe. I could say it's stillness, but it doesn't hold any specific position or energetic frequency or any way of being. So it's also movement. Stillness and movement here are not two things. They're not two truths. There are not two truths. There's only one truth. And it's obliteration of any paradigm. It's obliteration of any attachment to form, to body, to space, to time, to separation. It's everything that's happening in your experience right now. It's everything that's ever happened, and it's also never happened. This is beyond happening and not happening. It's primary to coming into being. It's primary to birth and death. And everything is perfectly still here, perfectly okay. Nothing arises that could be a problem. Because whether or not there's attachment to apparent form doesn't even matter, actually. The attachment to form and form are dependently originated. Neither one exists on its own. Perception and form, similarly, neither one exists on its own. They're just apparent truths, apparent phenomena. So you can't go here. You've never left here, but you also have never been here or not here. So it's really not in the end about you or an identity or control or letting go, because all of those are essentially beliefs. Maybe it's about abiding in non-abiding, remaining where nothing remains. But it's such a beautiful thing, this nothing remaining. It's blindingly beautiful. It creates and destroys simultaneously. It's all of the forms of integration and disintegration simultaneously. You don't need to know anything here, because the moment you think you know something, that's some kind of clinging to a paradigm, to mind, to enlightenment, to realization, to spirituality, to form, to emptiness. What's here doesn't know that world. It doesn't know the world of clinging, because there's no way clinging could even happen. It's absolute freedom. And it's your birthright.